how God delivered them from Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea crossing and led them to Mount Sinai where he gave Moses the Ten Commandments. Biblical scholars have argued for years about the location of these holy sites. Now one man says he might have found them. Take a look. What if the most powerful relic in human history was never lost, only hidden? Deep in the deserts of Saudi Arabia stands a mountain no one is allowed to approach, surrounded by fences, patrols, and a silence that has lasted for decades. The mountain is Jabal al-Lawz, and some researchers believe it may be the real Mount Sinai where Moses received the Ten Commandments. These tablets of stone, the writing of God, his Ten Commandments. But here's the question no one seems willing to answer. What could possibly be hidden inside a mountain that governments don't want the world to see? Some claim that deep inside the rock lies a sealed chamber, and within it an object whose dimensions match the legendary Ark of the Covenant. And if that's true, the story you're about to hear could change history forever. Sinai location mystery. Let's start with the basics because most people have never questioned this. If you grew up learning about Moses and the Exodus, you were probably taught that Mount Sinai is located in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. There's a mountain there called Jabal Musa, the Mountain of Moses, and it's been the traditionally accepted site for well over 1,000 years. At the foot of that mountain sits St. Catherine's Monastery, one of the oldest continuously operating Christian monasteries on the planet. It was built in the 6th century by order of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, who wanted to protect the monks living in the region and fortify what was believed to be the site of the burning bush. Before Justinian, it was Empress Helena, the mother of Emperor Constantine, who around 330 AD commissioned the original small chapel on that very spot. And she was the same woman who traveled the Holy Land identifying sacred sites. And when she pointed to the base of Jabal Musa and said this was where Moses stood, that was essentially that. A chapel was built. Pilgrims came, centuries passed, and the whole Christian world accepted it without much pushback. And look, St. Catherine's is a genuinely remarkable place. Its library holds over 3,300 ancient manuscripts. The library is said to contain manuscripts belonging to the Greek physician Hippocrates, and a rare version of the Bible written in the ancient Syriac text, believed to be the oldest copy in the world. Its collection of 2,000 icons includes some of the oldest surviving in the world, and UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 2002. By any measure, it is a treasure of human civilization. But here's the problem. Being a treasure doesn't make it the right location. And when you strip away the tradition, the architecture, the centuries of pilgrimage, and you look at the actual evidence, something doesn't add up. There is almost zero archaeological evidence linking Jabal Musa to the events described in the book of Exodus. No remnants of a massive Israelite encampment, no altar ruins, no split rock, nothing that matches the incredibly specific descriptions in the biblical text. And when you really dig into the scriptures, and I mean actually read the original passages, not just the Sunday school summary, the geography falls apart. The Bible says that after fleeing Egypt, Moses went to the land of Midian. That's where he encountered the burning bush. That's where God told him to bring the Israelites back to this mountain. Now, here's the critical piece. Midian is not in Egypt. Every ancient source places it in what is now northwestern Saudi Arabia. In the 1st century, historian Josephus located Mount Sinai within Arabia Petraea, a Roman province covering modern Jordan and northwestern Saudi Arabia. And the Apostle Paul, writing in Galatians chapter 4, verse 25, stated plainly that Mount Sinai is in Arabia, not near Arabia, in Arabia. So, why has the whole world been looking in the wrong place? Some researchers believe the answer is political. When Helena chose the site in the 4th century, the Sinai Peninsula was under Roman control. It was convenient, accessible, and safe. The Romans could build there and manage pilgrims. Saudi Arabia was a different world entirely, tribal, difficult to reach, and after the 7th century, firmly Islamic territory. Nobody was going to build a Christian pilgrimage site there, so the church went with what was available. And over time, the convenience became tradition, and tradition became gospel truth. And so, the wrong mountain became the right mountain for 1,700 years. And here's something else most people don't realize. Jabal Musa doesn't even match the biblical description particularly well. The text describes a mountain that stood alone, visible from a great distance, with a massive plain at its base where an entire nation could camp for months. Jabal Musa is part of a tight cluster of peaks with no significant plain. A Spanish noblewoman named Egeria, who visited around 380 AD and left one of the earliest written accounts of the site, described the valley as narrow and the paths difficult. Beautiful, yes. But a place where 2 million Israelites camped with their livestock for nearly a year? The math doesn't work. As scholars who have visited both sites and compared them to the text have quietly acknowledged this for decades, but tradition is a powerful thing. Once something becomes accepted, it takes an earthquake to change it. But in the 20th century, people started asking serious questions. They pulled out their maps, they reread Galatians 4:25, they traced the likely Exodus route not through the Sinai Peninsula, but eastward across the Gulf of Aqaba into ancient Midian. And those questions led them to a jagged, dark-topped peak rising 8,460 feet above the Saudi desert. A mountain whose name, Jabal al-Lawz. Jones believes Mount Sinai is actually located here, very close to the proposed site of the new Saudi megacity. The Mountain of Almonds sits right in the heart of ancient Midian, a mountain that, from the moment you see it, looks like something happened there. Real Sinai clues. Now, if Jabal al-Lawz is just another desert mountain, then there should be nothing remarkable about it. It should look like every other peak in the Hijaz region, tan, dry, unremarkable, but it doesn't. And the things found in and around this mountain read like a checklist straight out of the book of Exodus. Let's start with the summit. The top of Jabal al-Lawz is blackened, not dark-colored rock. Blackened, as if the peak was subjected to some kind of extreme heat event. The rock at the top is scorched in a way that geologists have struggled to explain through purely natural processes. Now, what does the Bible say about Mount Sinai? Exodus 19:18. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The mountain, according to the text, burned. And the top of Jabal al-Lawz looks exactly like a mountain that burned. But that's just the beginning. At the base of the mountain, there is a massive split rock, enormous, the size of a building, sitting on top of a hill. And running down the face of this rock are deep channels, erosion patterns consistent with a huge volume of water flowing out of it, in the middle of the desert, in an area where rainfall is virtually non-existent. What does the Bible describe? Moses striking a rock and water pouring out to quench the thirst of the entire Israelite nation. Exodus 17. And here it sits, exactly where you would expect it if this is the real Sinai. I want you to picture this. You're standing in one of the driest places on earth. Sand stretches in every direction. And in front of you is a rock, split clean open with smooth, water-worn channels running down its sides as if a river once poured from it. There is no river anywhere near this rock. There hasn't been one in recorded history. So, what caused those erosion marks? What force of water carved those channels in a place where it almost never rains? The conventional explanation is, well, there really isn't one that satisfies. Now talk about something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up the first time I saw photographs of it. Near the base of the mountain, researchers found ancient petroglyphs carved into the rocks. And what are they? Bulls, cows, calves carved into stone in a style consistent with ancient Near Eastern worship art. Now, what's the single most famous sin committed by the Israelites at the base of Mount Sinai? The golden calf. While Moses was up on the mountain receiving the commandments, the people below built a golden idol in the shape of a calf and worshipped it. And someone, thousands of years ago, carved images of calves into the rocks at the base of Jabal al-Lawz. Coincidence? Maybe. But the coincidences are starting to pile up, aren't they? And there's one more thing. The area surrounding the mountain includes a vast, flat plain large enough to accommodate a camp of potentially 2 million people. The Bible describes the Israelites camping at the base of the mountain for an extended period while Moses went up and down the peak. You need space for that. Massive space. And Jabal al-Lawz has it. Blackened summit, split rock with water erosion, calf petroglyphs, vast plains for an enormous camp. Every single detail lines up. Every single one. So here's the question that should be keeping you up tonight. If this evidence is real, why isn't it front-page news? Why aren't teams of archaeologists swarming this site? And that brings us to what might be the most disturbing part of this entire story. The Forbidden Mountain, Jabal al-Lawz, is off-limits, completely. The Saudi government has surrounded the site with fencing, security cameras, and posted guards. Signs warn that trespassing is forbidden. And this isn't recent. The restrictions have been in place for years, long before any public attention brought the mountain into the spotlight. Now, let's be fair here. Saudi Arabia restricts access to lots of archaeological sites. That's not unusual. But the level of security around Jabal al-Lawz goes beyond normal preservation measures. We're talking military-grade fencing. We're talking about people being arrested for getting too close. Why? The first Westerner to bring serious attention to Jabal al-Lawz was Ron Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist from Tennessee who, in the late 1980s, claimed to have crossed into Saudi Arabia and explored the site. Finally, tonight, a biblical search has ended once again with more questions than answers. For years, scientists and amateur archaeologists have searched the mountain, but they haven't been tested yet. And to many reporters, they just looked like rocks. Wyatt's story is controversial, to put it mildly. He was arrested by Saudi authorities, detained, and eventually released. But the photographs and descriptions he brought back were enough to ignite a firestorm of interest. Wyatt claimed he saw the split rock. He claimed he saw altars and boundary markers consistent with the biblical account. He claimed the blackened summit was unlike anything he had seen on any other mountain in the region. And whether you believe Ron Wyatt was a visionary or a fraud, and there are passionate people on both sides of that debate, the fact remains that the physical features he described have been independently verified by satellite imagery and later expeditions. After Wyatt, other researchers followed. Some used pseudonyms. Some went in under the cover of tourism permits for nearby areas. Almost all of them came back saying the same thing. The evidence on the ground is staggering, and the Saudi government clearly doesn't want anyone documenting it. One detail that keeps coming up in these accounts is the presence of what appear to be ancient boundary markers around the base of the mountain. And the book of Exodus specifically states that Moses was commanded to set boundaries around Mount Sinai. Physical markers that the people were forbidden to cross on penalty of death. Set limits for the people around the mountain, and God told Moses, and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. And there, in the desert around Jabal al-Lawz, researchers have identified a series of stone structures that look exactly like boundary markers, placed at regular intervals, forming a perimeter around the base of the mountain. There are also reports of what appears to be an ancient altar site near the foot of the mountain. A stone structure consistent with the altar that Moses reportedly built before ascending to receive the commandments. The Bible describes this altar in detail. Now, and the structure found at Jabal al-Lawz, while weathered by 3 millennia of desert wind, appears to match those descriptions. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some theorists believe the Saudi government isn't just protecting an archaeological site. They believe the Saudis know exactly what that mountain is. And they believe that the kingdom has been quietly conducting its own investigations, away from the eyes of the world, into what may be hidden not just around the mountain, but inside it. Which brings us to the part of this story that changes everything, the secret drone mission. In recent years, whispers began circulating through the underground world of biblical archaeology and alternative research. And the claim was explosive, that a covert scanning mission had been conducted at Jabal al-Lawz using cutting-edge technology. Specifically, a drone equipped with ground-penetrating radar, the kind of technology typically used in geological surveys and military reconnaissance. Now, I want to be completely transparent with you here. The details of this alleged mission are controversial. The source material is disputed. Some researchers swear by it. Others call it an elaborate fabrication. But what I'm about to describe to you has been circulating in serious research circles for years, and the implications, if even partially true, are staggering. According to the claims, a specially designed drone was deployed over Jabal al-Lawz, flying low enough to penetrate the rock with radar waves while remaining difficult to detect. And the drone reportedly made multiple passes over the mountain, scanning layer by layer, building a three-dimensional model of the mountain's interior structure, everything hidden beneath the stone. Ground-penetrating radar works by sending electromagnetic pulses into a surface and measuring the reflections. Different materials, solid rock, air pockets, metal, water, all reflect the signal differently. By compiling thousands of these readings, you can construct a detailed map of what's inside a structure without ever breaking the surface. It's the same technology used to discover hidden chambers in the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's proven, it's real, and allegedly, it was pointed at Jabal al-Lawz. The drone reportedly scanned the entire mountain over the course of several passes. The data was compiled. The 3D model was constructed, and layer after layer of solid granite and basalt, exactly what you'd expect from a mountain in this region. Normal, unremarkable, until the software started rendering the deeper sections. Because at a certain depth, reportedly several hundred feet below the summit, the radar returns changed. The solid uniform rock gave way to something else, an anomaly, a void where there should have been stone. And as the software refined the image, the shape of that void became clearer. It wasn't random. It wasn't a natural cave with jagged, irregular walls. It had geometry. It had structure. It had edges. And when researchers analyzed the results, what they found inside that mountain stopped them cold. Because Jabal al-Lawz, according to this data, is not just a mountain. Something is inside it. Something that, by every logical and geological standard, should not be there. Hidden arc chamber. According to the alleged scan data, deep within the interior of Jabal al-Lawz, far beneath the blackened summit, past hundreds of feet of solid rock, the ground-penetrating radar detected a void. Not a natural cave, not a geological fissure. A chamber, dome-shaped, smooth, with dimensions and geometry that suggest it was either carved by intelligent hands or formed by some process that current geology cannot explain. But that's not what made researchers lose sleep. Inside this chamber, the radar reportedly detected structures, geometric forms, angular, deliberate, things that do not occur naturally inside mountains. And in the center of this chamber, sitting alone, distinct from everything around it, a rectangular object. A rectangular object whose length, width, bar and height correspond with chilling precision to the dimensions given in the Book of Exodus for the Ark of the Covenant. 2 and 1/2 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, 1.5 cubits high, roughly 3 feet 9 inches by 2 feet 3 inches by 2 feet 3 inches. A golden chest built to hold the stone tablets of God's law. Now, I need you to sit with that for a second. Really let it sink in. If this data is accurate, and that is a massive if that deserves to be questioned, challenged, and investigated, then the most important religious artifact in human history may be sitting inside a mountain in Saudi Arabia. A mountain that matches every biblical description of Mount Sinai. A mountain the Saudi government has fenced off and guarded for decades. A mountain with a burned summit, a split rock, a golden calf petroglyphs, and room for 2 million people to camp at its base. The Ark of the Covenant. The object that the Bible says could bring down city walls, strike men dead for touching it, and channel the literal presence of God. The object that Indiana Jones spent a whole movie looking for. The object that Ethiopia claims to have, that the Knights Templar allegedly sought, that has been the subject of more treasure hunts, conspiracy theories, and obsessive research than perhaps any other artifact in recorded history. And consider the theological implications for just a moment. According to the Bible, the Ark was kept in the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the temple in Jerusalem. Only the high priest could enter that chamber once a year. When Solomon's temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, toward the end of the 7th century BCE, the Babylonian Empire quickly conquers the lands to the west of the Euphrates River, including the Kingdom of Judah. The Ark simply vanished from the historical record. Gone. No record of it being captured. No record of it being destroyed. It just disappeared from the narrative as if it had never existed. And for 2,000 years, nobody has been able to definitively say where it went. Some scholars have proposed that the prophet Jeremiah hid the Ark before the Babylonian siege. The second book of Maccabees mentions Jeremiah concealing the Ark in a cave on the mountain where Moses went up and saw God's heritage, which is of course Mount Sinai. If Jabal al-Lawz is the real Mount Sinai, then an ancient Jewish text is literally telling us the Ark was hidden inside this mountain. That's not speculation. That's a textual breadcrumb that's been sitting in plain sight for over 2,000 years, inside that mountain, right there, behind a fence, and guarded by soldiers. Now, let me be the first to say, this has not been independently verified by mainstream scientific institutions. No peer-reviewed paper has confirmed these scans. The source of the data remains disputed, and there are people with serious credentials who believe this is either a misinterpretation of natural geological features or an outright fabrication. And you know what? Those people might be right. But here's what keeps pulling me back to this story. If it's nothing, if Jabal al-Lawz is just a mountain and there's nothing remarkable about it, then why the fences? Why the guards? Why the arrests? Why has the Saudi government for decades treated this specific mountain like it's the most sensitive site in the entire kingdom? They've opened up other archaeological sites. They've invited international researchers to study ancient Nabatean ruins. They've even started a massive tourism initiative around historical locations, but not Jabal al-Lawz. Never Jabal al-Lawz. What if everything we've been told is wrong? What if the real Mount Sinai has been sitting there this entire time, and the greatest discovery in archaeological history is locked behind a fence in the Saudi desert? The mountain still stands in silence, hidden behind fences in the desert. Jabal al-Lawz remains untouched, unexplored, and officially ignored. Yet, its shadows continue to stir one of history's most powerful questions: the true location of Mount Sinai, where Moses is said to have received the Ten Commandments. If the evidence surrounding this mountain is coincidence, then it may be the most extraordinary coincidence archaeology has ever seen. But if it isn't, then somewhere inside that rock may lie the legendary Ark of the Covenant, waiting after 3,000 years of silence. History has always left clues. The real question is whether we are ready to face what those clues might reveal. Because if the truth is hidden inside that mountain, who exactly has been making sure the world never finds it?